Ulysses by Alfred Lord Tennyson, presented by Sarah Bailey. It little profits that an idle king, by this still hearth, among these barren crags, matched with an aged wife, I mete and dole unequal laws unto a savage race, that hoard, and sleep, and feed, and know not me. I cannot rest from travel. I will drink life to the lees. All times I have enjoyed greatly, have suffered greatly, both with those that loved me and alone. On shore, and when through scudding drifts the rainy Hyades vex the dim sea, I am become a name, for always roaming with the hungry heart much have I seen and known, cities of men and manners, climates, councils, governments, myself not least, but honored of them all, and drunk delight of battle with my peers far on the ringing plains of windy Troy. Yet all experience is an arch, where through gleams that untraveled world, whose margin fades forever and forever when I move. How dull it is to pause, to make an end, to rust unburnished, not to shine in use, as though to breathe were life. Life piled on life were all too little, and what of one to me little remains. But every hour is saved from that eternal silence, something more, a bringer of new things. And vile it were for some 3 suns to store and hoard myself, and this grey spirit yearning and desire to follow knowledge like a sinking star beyond the utmost bounds of human thought. This is my son, mine own Telemachus, to whom I leave the sceptre and the isle, well loved of me, discerning to fulfill this labor, by slow prudence to make mild a rugged people, and through soft degrees subdue them to the useful and the good. Most blameless is he, centered in the sphere of common duties, decent not to fail in offices of tenderness, and pay meet adoration to my household gods when I am gone. He works his work, I mine. There lies the port, the vessel puffs her sail, there gloom the dark, broad seas. My mariners, souls that have toiled and wrought and thought with me, that ever with a frolic welcome took the thunder and the sunshine, and opposed free hearts, free foreheads. You and I are old. Old age hath yet his honor and his toil. Death closes all, but something ere the end, some work of noble note may yet be done, not unbecoming men that strove with gods. The lights begin to twinkle from the rocks, the long day wanes, the slow moon climbs, the deep moans round with many voices. Come, my friends, 'tis not too late to seek a newer world. Push off, and sitting well in order, smite the sounding furrows, for my purpose holds to sail beyond the sunset and the baths of all the western stars until I die. It may be that the gulfs will wash us down. It may be that we shall touch the happy isles and see the great Achilles whom we knew. Though much is taken, much abides, and though we are not now that strength which in old days moved heaven and earth, that which we are, one equal temper of heroic hearts, made weak by time and fate, but strong in will, to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. Historical context for this poem. Ulysses, otherwise known as Odysseus, is a mythic figure in ancient Greek literature. The most prominent elements providing the context of this poem are his 10-year military career fighting in the Trojan War, culminating in his army's victorious attack on Troy via the Trojan horse, his subsequent 10-year voyage home to Ithaca involving many adventures and various confrontations with Greek gods, and upon finally arriving home, his defense and reclamation of his wife Penelope against 108 eager suitors. In this poem, Ulysses is presented as an aging king long after the thrills and glories of battle have ended. The themes in this poem: dissatisfaction with a simple life, fear of living an unimportant, stagnant life, living fully and fearlessly with no fear of death, finding value in old age, thirst for adventure and knowledge, and choosing dreams and passions over duties. The vocabulary of this poem is literary, formal, and effective. It is descriptive, but frequently uses concrete imagery to communicate abstract ideas. With the frequent use of metaphors, symbolism, antithesis, and so on, it also has a lot of alliteration, including life to the lees, hungry hearts, drink delight of battle, heroic hearts, and so on. The rhythm employs a continuous use of enjambment, example in line 58 through 61. The versification is iambic pentameter with the occasional spondee and trochee, which creates a conversational feeling. There's an example of spondee. and an example of trochee. Ulysses is completely dissatisfied with his current life. It is interesting that he mentions Penelope as his aged wife, when really they are the same age, they age together. We normally think of a hero living happily ever after when he returns home in victory, but this is not the case here. They've been separated for 20 years, living drastically different lives, and they must have been strangers when he returned. In fact, Penelope is not mentioned again, and I find that interesting. The inhabitants of Ithaca are just as foreign as Penelope is, and he finds no pleasure in governing a race that is unfamiliar to him as he is to them. He bluntly states in the next lines that he cannot rest from travel and he desires to drink life to the lees. Lees refers here to the sediment that collects at the bottom of a wine bottle. To drink to the lees means to drink every last drop of wine, which in this context symbolizes his intention to live fully. Along with the shift in subject, the tone shifts to a more determined, active feeling. Through lines 6 through 16, we begin to understand who Ulysses is and why his current life is so ill-matched to him, and as he recalls his former days of travel and war. His happiest memories are those during which he suffered most. Ulysses thrives on challenge and change. The phrase "I become a name" further stresses the juxtaposition between these two lives. Although Ulysses is renowned for his daring deeds, he feels that renown is all he has left now. To be a name implies a stagnant and actionless state. He pulls further away from Ithaca as he continues to recall his youth. His memory of drinking delight of battle with his peers is a stark contrast to the savages of Ithaca. His peers are not to be found among domestic, uneducated people, but among the sailors and warriors who have seen the world. Ulysses turns to more philosophical pondering. The interpretation of lines 19 through 21 are somewhat problematic. The untraveled world could simply mean the parts of the world Ulysses has not yet explored. The fading margin could then mean that the more he sees, the less there is to discover. Alternatively, the untraveled world could allude to an afterlife, with the experiences of this life forming an elusive gateway to the next. Either interpretation seems to make sense with the context of the poem, and they are spoken with a mysterious, almost reverent tone. Changing to a more agitated tone, he then expresses the repugnancy of a stagnant life. He speaks metaphorically of an unused, inactive life rusting through lack of use. Knowing his military background, one can easily picture Ulysses' armor or sword rusting unburnished, just like his life. He follows with the oxymoron as though to breathe were life. Breath is the most basic, vital sign of life. However, Ulysses believed that breathing alone does not constitute true living. His soul yearns for knowledge that reaches beyond human capacity, and he abhors the 3 years already spent ignoring these yearnings. As we close this section, the tone, while still discontent, becomes very agitated with a sense of longing. Ulysses abruptly changes subjects to speak of his son. Telemachus, raised without the presence of his father, has an entirely opposite temperament and outlook on life. He is discerning, dutiful, prudent, patient, blameless, and tender. This is the king Ithaca needs. Ulysses, while professing his love for his son, is at peace with leaving him to take his place as king. The finality of the phrase, "he works his work, I mine," emphasizes the drastic differences between the two men. Their unique temperaments are leading them into different lives. Ulysses honors him for his unique strengths and talents. The tone is softer here, reinforced by domestic imagery, softer consonants, and a slower pace. This shorter stanza cuts the final chord tying Ulysses to Ithaca. Not only is he ill-suited to life here, he is not even truly needed. Now that he has refuted any reason to stay, Ulysses seizes the opportunity to depart. His ship is ready. He begins addressing his sailors, his old friends. As he does so, the tone becomes more familiar, even happy. We feel that Ulysses has now regained his footing in his own world. His mariners were by his side through all his adventures with free hearts and free foreheads, or in other words, by their own desire and choice. Though they have aged, they still have the ability and opportunity to accomplish something great. At the close of this section, the day transitions to night, and the sea seems to call to him. The shorter phrases contribute to a lull in the energy here. We sense the coming night is symbolic as he calls his friends. It is time for them to make their own transition, perhaps out of mortality altogether. Ulysses begins his voyage with strength, hope, and courage, with a commanding tone. The lines "to sail beyond the sunset and the bows of all the western stars" refers to the ancient belief that the flat world was surrounded by a great river or ocean into which the stars descended. Ulysses desires to sail off the earth entirely to explore whatever lies beyond until death. However, he is open to the likelihood of dying before reaching his goal. Perhaps they will be drowned in a storm or find the Happy Isles, which is a sort of heaven for heroes. The line, "that which we are," communicates the strength of Ulysses' pride. He is fully aware of the weaknesses that old age has brought him, and he embraces it without shame. This is reinforced by the antithesis which follows, "made weak by time and fate, but strong in will." Throughout this passage, the emotion and energy have built steadily, further heightened by the repeated "to" in the last words: to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. The word yield brings us to a sudden resounding end in the fashion of a rousing pre-battle speech, which Ulysses certainly would have had experience giving. One can almost hear the ringing cheers of his men as they push off with united, heroic hearts into the night of a new adventure. The meaning that I find in this poem is best encapsulated in 3 different lines. The first, "as though to breathe were life." Living passively does not provide happiness. We must embrace our talents, desires, and passions and follow them. By doing so, we discover our life's purpose, our work, and when we have found it, we have the obligation to work it fearlessly. That which we are, we are. We should never resign ourselves to a life that goes against our nature, or pretend to be something we're not, for this only brings us conflict and dissatisfaction. And finally, 'tis not too late to seek a newer world. We all have the potential to change our lives for the better and achieve greatness, no matter the impediments working against us.